All right, at this point, I'm going to call the meeting to order at noon, and we'll skip the flag salute today, and we'll ask for roll call from the clerk.
Councilor Boland,
Here.
Councilor Furlow,
Here.
Councilor Grizzle,
Here.
Councilor Reeskamp,
Here.
Councilor Stouter,
Here.
Councilor Steinhebel.
Here.
Okay, and we have Trey here also, correct?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. It's just a little hard without seeing everybody. Okay, first up, we have the consent calendar. We have the agenda for today, March 25th, 2020. I'll entertain a motion.
Move for approval. This is Michelle. Oh, sorry. Second, this is Rebecca.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the consent calendar is approved. And we'll move on to the regular session, ratification, declaration of state of emergency for the city of Lebanon. And Ron, would you like to present that, please?
Absolutely. Thanks, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Thanks for everybody joining us today. As you all are aware, based on the emails that went out last week, the city did declare a state of emergency. We conferred with Trey, obviously, on this before we did it. Some of the reasons we did this weren't necessarily because the state and the county did it, but more for our operations. This allows us to seek federal funding should it be available. It also allows us to change up some of our staffing and how we're doing that for our union contracts. And really that comes down to scheduling. We're still trying to adhere to the union contracts as much as possible. It also put into place a temporary policy for how staff is telecommuting and that type of stuff. So Lebanon Municipal Code allows us to do that. We initiated it at 1 o'clock last, let's see, on the 18th of March. Reason for that time is so that we could make sure we had the ratification done in 7 days, which we are doing right now. As you can see from the attached agenda, we have the resolution here. You can see our policy that was put in place, which we also sent that out as well as the declaration. One of the things to note on this is we did change some language this morning to the resolution, which will allow, originally I think it was set for April 18th was when it would be ending. What we've done with this is given the city the authority to extend that should circumstances still be the same or change. Obviously that we would go back out to you, but not necessarily through a ratification process. So with that, I can answer any questions on that.
Any questions? Now, first of all, I want to thank Ron for all of his work that he's been doing, the staff, and all the work they've been doing under these unprecedented times, difficult times because we haven't been here before. And I just appreciate all the work that you've done in taking care of things. Thank you, Ron.
You're welcome. It's been my pleasure.
Good job, Ron.
Yep, great job. I too appreciate everything. It's like the mayor said, this is uncharted territory, and it really has, from my end, seeming like just very smooth. So kudos to everybody that is involved.
Well, we've got good department directors that they're running their departments, and then Matt and Kelly have been here with me, and we've tried to manage this so everybody else could continue doing what they need to do. And we're getting through it as best we can. I'm glad it seems smooth on the outside.
Yeah, it certainly does, Ron.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions specifically regarding the resolution? Okay, with that, we have the city attorney read the resolution name, please.
Resolution number 2020-06, a resolution ratifying declaration of state of emergency regarding COVID-19.
Do we need a motion as amended, Ron?
No, because that's the one that was in the council packet.
Oh, the current, what we're looking at is amended.
Yes.
And I move
Yeah.
for approval. This is Rebecca.
Wayne,
Sharon, I'll
Wayne,
second it.
second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve resolution 2020-06. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The resolution's passed. Thank you, everyone. Okay, with that, let me go back to my agenda here. Do we have any items from council? One thing I want to mention, if you haven't, if you would follow my mayor's, if you're on Facebook, follow the mayor's page there, Mayor Paul Aziz, Lebanon. And I've got updates constantly going out all day on anything that's new. If I've spoken to a senator or whoever it was, I'm putting all that constantly out there on that feed. So if you do want an update, that page does have an information all day. And then I do an update at the night, kind of a recap for the evening.
Hey, Paul,
Okay.
Jason here. I know a lot of people here at Lebanon Fire have commented on your page, and they appreciate the info and the sharing on there. So good job on that, and keep it up.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Okay,
this
anything
is
else from council?
on again.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I'd like to give just a little bit of an update on our closures while we've got everybody on the line,
Sure.
so that we're all, basically, I think everybody knows what's going on at City Hall. There's 6 of us here, keeping things moving forward here. Obviously, our library's still closed. I think one of the biggest things is the governor's order this week and the closures that we've implemented since then. That seems to be getting some feedback from the community, but kind of gave you a reasoning why we did what we did. We closed all of our parks, trails, and trailheads. Basically, all of our trailheads, you know, they enter through a park. That was the reason for the closure. And after last weekend, from visually looking at these places, we actually had more people. We had people parking out on River Road just to use the Cheetah Lake Park to get to the trails, just due to the amount of people that were parked in the parking lot. And that kind of goes
Wow.
the governor's order a little bit, as in the whole stay at home and only travel for essential needs. I think one of the things that we're hearing from the community is, you know, why can't we use the trails? And really, we're not going to go out and tackle anybody or tell them not to use the trails. I think what we're trying to do is avoid large gatherings. And that was the reason for the hard closures on those, as well as the restrooms in the parks, because the parks are closed. So those are some of the big things. And I just kind of wanted to bring it up and make sure everybody was on the same page. If you get questions, that's why we did that. It feels a little draconian, but in the same sense, we're trying to follow the orders that were given from the state. And part of that order was to limit travel, which i.e. means closing off parking lots and whatnot. I think if people walk through the park or if they walk down a trail, I don't think there's anybody out there that's going to care. That wouldn't be much different than walking down a sidewalk. But I think the whole point of this is to limit the large gatherings and keep people at a safe distance. So does anybody have any questions or concerns with that they'd like to share? Okay, I think that's all I got then. Mayor, are you still there?
I'm just talking to my mute button. Sorry. I just rambled on.
Earlier.
That was weird. The complete
I was
silence.
I was trying to be good. Okay, so Going back, we have one last call for items from council.
Well, when are we going to
With
have
that-
the URD discussion?
Right after this.
Okay,
We're going to adjourn into a work session right after this.
okay. Thank you.
Hey,
Our next
Ron,
scheduled-
this is Michelle.
Uh-huh.
Of those that are still at City Hall, what's everybody like? How's it going? Can you give us a general
What's
feel?
everybody like? Well, I'll
Yeah.
tell you, it's extremely different. Like you said, this is unprecedented, and all the businesses that, we normally do business with, they're telecommuting as well. We're telecommuting with our staff, and I guess I really don't even know how to explain it. I mean, nobody's ready to jump off the building yet, so doing pretty
That's
good.
good. I wasn't
Yeah.
hoping that wasn't the case.
But we're doing well. Matt and Kelly and I have spent a lot of time just tracking this, and we're setting up tracking sheets for our staffs that are telecommuting and just trying to keep as much of our business going as we can keep going, and keep people working as much as we can, keep our bills paid, and for the most part, seems to be going pretty good.
This is
good.
still Michelle. One other question. Have we set anything up yet? I know other utilities have looked at, I know we suspend shutoffs, but are we doing anything in terms of looking down the pipe in terms of like late fees that might happen or people that may not be able to pay their bills?
Well, I think so. So my take on that is let's see what comes out of this, right? So let's see how many people get there. Obviously, in this situation, if you call us and you couldn't pay your bill for one reason or another, we're going to work with you, and we're going to find a way to work with you. As far as late fees, I mean, obviously, if you come in and work with us, and try and set up some kind of payment plan moving forward, whatever that looks like, we're going to work with you and probably waive those fees. I mean, that wouldn't be our intent to do that. I think we looked at the utility billing process in this, and not knowing how long this was going to last, and said, let's get the bills out so that at the end of this, if it is 2 months, if it is 3 months, we're not sending out a 3-month bill for somebody. And hopefully they can stay on top of it with that. But again, we're more than willing to work with anybody that's got issues with that. Absolutely.
Ron, this is
Okay,
Wayne.
thank you.
Do we have pretty good volume at the drop box for utilities?
Yeah, I think people are using it. I think a lot of people have switched online, and yeah, we're actually using a Dropbox for contractors with permits to drop off checks that typically pay with checks. So our Dropbox is definitely getting used.
Good. Thank you.
Do we have Chief Stevenson on the line?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hey, could you give us a little report on how your troops are doing and how things are going from patrol standpoint?
Yeah, we're doing good over here. It looks quite a bit different than how we are accustomed to conducting business. A lot of the stuff is now over the phone, which is odd for us. But as far as the spirits goes and how we're doing good. No one's reported sick. We're still out there on patrol. Just looks a little bit different than what it normally would look like.
Well, it's not an easy job in the first place, and to throw in this social distancing and all the other things, you guys have a lot of challenges, and I really appreciate your work.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's one of the biggest things that has been talked about is just the whole social distancing part of it. But it's been really great. The community is accepting that, and we haven't ran into too many huge issues that we haven't been able to work through. So it's a little bit odd to have our jail not operating. So that looks a little bit different, but like I said, we're still out there patrolling the streets and answering calls of service. When we can, we do it over the phone, and that goes against everything that that we all believe in. But you know, we're getting through it. So everyone's stepping up and making sure that we're all staying healthy over here.
Great. Thank you, Chief. And Jason, could you give a little report just from the fire department standpoint? Maybe just kind of update us on how things are going over there.
Sure. So we've had some slight impact. We had a couple of members that were in direct contact with positive COVID patients. They went on a 14-day quarantine, and they are now off of that quarantine. All their tests came back negative, so we're happy with that. We're currently preparing for the projected surge in Oregon of COVID patients. That projection is somewhere between April 11th and 19th. So we're making some strategic moves to up staff and for the potential increased demand of services for us. We just went through the process of canceling mutually canceling our agreement with Albany Fire and Tangent Fire with the shared medic unit. We're bringing that medic unit back into Lebanon Fire solely, so it'll be our own additional medic unit in our system, which is great. And again, all parties agreed to that move, which was going to happen anyway. And so really, we're just doing some staffing switches and moving some people around, and we're kind of still business as normal. Obviously, we have to show up and be here just like PD, and all of our people still working from the main station and just taking the proper precautions as needed. So things are moving along. We're working really closely with LCH, and Samaritan's done a good job of keeping us in the loop. So yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Anything else from anybody else? Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn the regular session, and I will call to order the work session. And the Urban Renewal District finance updates will be presented by Ron Whitlatch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, Matt's going to do most of the presenting, and I'll chime in wherever he wants me to help him out, but I think he's got a pretty good handle on it. You're probably wondering why we're trying to have a work session in all this. It'll become apparent when we get to the end of the work session. There's some actions that we're proposing to take once we get through the work session. You'll understand that a little bit better. So with that, I'll just have Matt start walking you through. I think everybody's got the PowerPoint probably on their iPad to walk through this, and we'll give you a little update on where we're at in our URDs and specifically our Northwest Urban Renewal District.
Just to start off, is there anybody that does not have the PowerPoint? Okay.
Yeah, Matt, this is Wayne. I do not because I'm sitting alongside the freeway.
Okay. Well, I will try my best to describe what's going on in it. I don't know if there's a different way that we can get it to you. So, but overall, the agenda, go ahead.
I can look at the information later.
Okay. All right, so kind of our agenda, we're going to go through the back of what urban renewal districts are. We're going to, discuss the current status of them, consider future action for the Northwest Urban Renewal District, and have some recommendations. So first, what's a URD? URDs are used to revitalize blighted areas and to help encourage development in underdeveloped land. And then funding for an urban development district comes from tax increment financing. So all property within a district, kind of the assessed value for the normal taxing districts freezes, and then the increase in the assessed value after that time goes into the urban renewal district. Another important piece about an urban renewal district is the maximum indebtedness. So the maximum indebtedness is the total amount of tax increment financing that can be expended on projects. One of the caveats there is debt interest is not included towards that maximum indebtedness. And I guess as we go through this, if you guys have any questions, make sure to just type in and I'll stop and answer any questions that you guys have. So currently, where are we at? So we're now on to the, I think, 4th slide. It's so annually we have urban renewal reports that each of you have received the past 2 years. This past year, there was a new requirement in the reports, and that's that we disclose the amount of the maximum indebtedness that we have spent. So as of June 2019, we have spent, approximately 3.2 million of the 18.5 million for Cheetah Lake. The North Gateway, we've spent approximately 4 million of the 15.7 million. And then for the Northwest Lebanon Urban Renewal District, we had spent 24.8 million out of the 33.2 million that we could spend. Now, as we get back into the North Lebanon Urban and Renewal District, we want to kind of get more focused into it. So the background on this one, we created it in 1998. The plan's gone through 4 different amendments. So we would change projects, kind of area that was included in the plans. And per the Oregon revised statutes, you can change the maximum indebtedness once in the lifetime of an urban renewal district. Well, we did that back in 2012 in July. We increased that maximum indebtedness from about 24.7 million up to the 32.2 million. And we did that based on some projects that we added to the district. One of the biggest projects that was included in that was the Lowe's project. It was originally planned for 3.5 million. We ended up giving them 10 million. So that's quite a difference there. And then we also had other planned projects that we completed per the upgrade to the district. And then back in 2017, we also entered into an economic development agreement with Mill Race to reimburse some of their public infrastructure costs. So the next slide just gives a nice little overview of the boundaries of the Northwest Urban Renewal District. And then we go into the status of the Northwest Urban Renewal District. So at the projection for the end of June 30, 2020, here in about 3 months, we will have spent 26 million of the 33.2 million on the maximum indebtedness, but we will have outstanding debt principal of about 10.7 million. So that shows that we're going to be projectedly overspending our maximum indebtedness by 3.5 million. That also doesn't account for any payments for the economic development agreement with the Mill Race property. So that's kind of why we're here, is to discuss this and make sure you're aware of it. I'm trying to think why we had that last bullet point on that one.
Well, this is Ron. So the Mill Race development was an economic development agreement that was put together, which basically pays back all public infrastructure based on tax increments. So as new development occurs out there, there's a certain amount of public infrastructure that was put in, and as taxes increase, that the captured TIF on that, or tax increment financing, 80% of that would go back to the developer for the public improvements that have been put in. Very similar to what was done on McKinney Lane and some of the other agreements that were put together in the past. That was there.
Okay. Any questions at this point? Okay, I'll keep moving on. So our proposed future actions. So as we said, at this point, just going forward with what we have, we would overexpend the maximum indebtedness in the Northwest Urban Renewal District. Legally, we can't do that. And so what we've tried to go back and figure out is, okay, how much from what was spent over the amount we should have. So we determined at this point we could take about $600,000 from the general fund. Now this is what we kind of estimated the beginning balance to be more than what we budgeted for this past year, is approximately that $600,000. And then we had some water fund projects that came out of the district as well for about $500,000. So to get back to whole in this district, we would make these one-time transfers from the general fund and the water fund, and then we'd need to make annual transfers of about $240,000 out of the general fund until fiscal year 2028. At the same time, we will be able to underfund the Northwest Lebanon Urban Renewal District by an additional about $680,000 a year. And so that's going to bring money back into the general fund and back into the other taxing districts. The approximate amount for the general fund would be about $225,000.
So the net in that is basically, with this, the general fund would have to come up with essentially $15,000 a year to the way we've got it laid out right now, in order to make those payments, in order for us to stay, I go, for lack of a better term, legal with the maximum indebtedness as we move this thing forward.
And then on top of that, the next thing that we will need to do is create a new project-specific urban renewal district. So the district boundaries for this would literally be taking the properties for the mill race development out of the Northwest Urban Renewal District and then creating a new urban renewal district specifically for those properties. So this will allow us to honor the mill race economic development agreement. The timing of this is what's crucial, because we need to have the urban renewal district set up and created by September 30th. So that way we limit the general fund exposure. So that's going to be what freezes the tax assessed value, so that it starts to go into this new urban renewal district. If we get past that, then we have to wait for another year before that assessed value freezes, and you end up losing the development that they've done over the past year. Just like the others, the district will, well, I guess not like the others. This district will not receive any tax increment financing that first year because of how setting this up happens. So what we would do is the general fund would loan the district money for any amount that they would need to pay for mill race that first year. And then as we would get tax increment money, they would pay back the general fund. As I already said, we would remove the property out of the Northwest Lebanon Urban Renewal District. And so overall, there would be no change in acreage among the city's urban renewal districts. Are there any questions?
This is Councilor Furlow. Can you tell me what the anticipated amount then would be for the mill race development project? What's
that
remaining?
We would collect? So we have not paid them anything at this point. It's all based on the tax increment that they provide, and thus far, we haven't had any tax increment from their properties.
So what's the maximum indebtedness you project?
It's a function of how much development they do. So really, we'll project out what we think the development will be. And that's what our
I'm asking. What's that number?
So it'd be roughly 9.6 million.
That would be the most that they could get back. We don't expect them to get that much, and we would specifically close this district once we repaid them anything we had to repay them.
This is Karen. So I guess I am missing how we got into this predicament.
Well,
Is this, this is Michelle. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're fine.
Is this the fill dirt issue with, or not issue, but agreement we had with Lowe's under John Hitt?
Well, yeah. So, okay. So let me walk you back a little bit here. So in 2012, they did an amendment to the Urban Renewal District, which included the Lynn Benton Community College out on Oak Street and some other infrastructure projects, street-related projects. And it also included in the district update $3.5 million to Lowe's. And once that was gone through, at least this is to my recollection and what little I was involved in that piece of it, it ended up being $10 million for the repayment as opposed to $3.5 million. So at that time, there were no, I'll call it safeguards in place where we were, I guess they probably should have been tracking what that maximum indebtedness was throughout that. So we continued to build the projects that were in the updated plan, and hence this is where we're over right now. Once Matt came in and calculated all the maximum indebtedness again, and we've worked with a consultant and tried to figure those pieces out. So that's kind of how we got to this point. And now we're just in fix-it mode. And I think the fix that we've laid out in front of you is it's not the best, but it's going to be the least impact to anything moving forward.
Ron, this is Wayne. Is the total 50 acres or whatever that is being removed?
Yes, it would basically, so the mill race development sits within the Northwest Urban Renewal District. So that portion would be taken off of the Northwest Urban Renewal District, and it would be put into a new Urban Renewal District. And that is for nothing more than to honor the current economic development agreement we have with them. If we don't do that, I'm not the attorney, but we have a signed economic development agreement with them. I mean, I think that what ends up happening at that point is we end up being on the hook with the general fund.
Sure. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Karen, did that answer your question as well?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay.
I would like to point out one of the ways that we are going forward, going to make it so we don't run into a situation like this, is through the annual urban renewal reports that we send out. We are required to report that maximum indebtedness. And so it's something that we have to calculate and release to you guys on a yearly basis. So that way this doesn't happen again.
Well, I guess on one hand, this is Karen, it was good that it was caught. It's just unfortunate that there wasn't foresight to be paying attention. So I guess right now we just got to move forward and fix it as best we can. And I agree with you, Ron, that this is probably the least, quote, painful way to do it.
Yeah, it's, without pointing a bunch of fingers and doing that, God bless Matt for coming in and digging through this stuff and getting us back on track. So.
Yeah, for sure.
So with
I
kind of
agree.
with
This
that,
is
unless there's
Michelle.
more
Thank you,
questions.
Matt.
Do you guys have more questions regarding that, or is it, I mean, we'll answer anything. Does it make sense kind of what the direction we're headed? This is kind of complex on a phone conference call to do this, but we really want to get started with our consultants so that we can capture that as much as possible.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I think that what you guys have laid out makes a lot of sense as far as going forward, and I don't have any problem with it.
This is Michelle. Can you remind me how many URDs we'll have with the creation of this additional one?
So this would be 5. The one we didn't talk about, if we created this one, this one would be the 5th one. We have the downtown, or I think it's the Main Street downtown urban renewal district. It didn't really. I think it received like $1,000 on tax increment this year, and there's been no expense out of it. So it wasn't really worth too much. The report was done for it, obviously, but there wasn't any.
The report for that actually wasn't done because it's for the previous fiscal year, which it didn't have any activity in. So
Okay.
it will have a report next year.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
This is Wayne. Matt, I'll come into the office at some point in time. I'm not really seeing why we weren't picking up on that on our annual budget meetings in terms of how the URDs were presented. Is it because it just wasn't known?
So when I started, yeah, it was not something that was there. As we started going through some of this discussion and trying to figure out what we need to do for some of these things, that it came up, and I started reaching out to our consultant and talking with Ron and trying to figure out, am I totally just missing this? But it seems like this is going to be an issue, and they recommended that we go back through. So I went back to 1989 and started recalculating the maximum indebtedness to make sure that we knew what was going on.
Wow, thank you very much, Matt.
Yes, thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
We have currently, in fact, we're pretty much have scope and everything ready for a contract with Elaine Howard to do this work, and she will be starting immediately. I just wanted to go through this process with you first before we put a contract out there for you. I mean, the contract is, I want to say, around $32,000 or $33,000 to do all this work, which is pretty typical of that kind of work. But I wanted an opportunity for you guys to hear how this came about before it just got put out there in some form of a contract.
When would you see this on the agenda for approval, discussion and approval?
Based on our signing authority, we do not need to bring that back for a council approval. It was my intent to give you information prior to you learning that we were in the process of trying to create a new URD. I just wanted you to be aware of what was going on before that was out there publicly.
No, I'm talking about for the approval of the URD.
Oh, that we're going to work with our consultant, and we'll make sure that we get it on time. Latest would be September.
Any other questions?
Wayne here. Ron, what's the length of the contract you're going to put together for the consultant? Is it 3 months, 6 months, a year? Or whatever time it is.
Just whatever time it takes here. So, I mean, she thought she would have everything wrapped up to where we can make at least have this thing implemented by September. So my guess is sooner than that, but there's other, there's process that we need to go through on this. And we'll learn more about that as we go through that process.
Thank you.
Okay, Ron, did you have anything in closing?
No, I think that's it, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I think that's all we have for now.
Okay. If we have no other comments or questions, then we will adjourn our work session. Thank you,
I have
everybody.
one more comment. I'm sorry. This is Michelle. As we move forward with these, hi, this is Michelle still. As we move forward with these, are we, I'm more concerned about the public not being able to comment. Are we looking at different ways to strategize, how we can address that, or even media comments, providing them possibly with a number? I just want to put that out there so for future ones we have some sort of mechanism in place.
Well, this is Trey. As far as the ability to do that, I'll let Brent address it. We do know that you don't need to as a matter of law, and I think it was procedurally the issue, not that we don't want to hear the comments, it's just how to make that happen. So I guess it's kind of technology, a way to make that accessible with the technology that we have at our disposal right now and still keep the meetings orderly. I think you guys recognize sometimes when we have those public comments, the ability to be there and discuss, answer questions, but also for the public to follow the necessary instructions regarding stating their name, not arguing, not answering questions. All that could be more difficult. Now, all that being said, I think it's just a matter of whether the technology makes that able to do that or not. And for that, I can't answer the question.
And this is Brent. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So yes, technically, Michelle, it is absolutely possible. Our concern and my concern in talking with Trey was, one, we'd never done this before as a council. And I know that the closest we got to it was when Mayor Aziz was ill earlier this year. And so we brought him in over the PA system. And the ability currently with the way we're running this meeting to have everybody call in and allow some people to call in from a phone and other people to call in from a computer. My biggest concern was the mutability of the public to where the council could discuss and then vote audibly and did not have somebody who we didn't know be able to raise their hand. Obviously, we have conference calls all the time. We could certainly bring everybody into the same meeting. But as a step one, I talked to Trey and just asked if we could stream this to YouTube as a step one. Because of the nature of this meeting, it wasn't a full council meeting. But we're certainly looking at that, and whether we use GoToMeeting in the future or if we can bring in Zoom. What I would like to see is maybe a code that we could give the counselors so that they would have like an unlockability, or we ask, like I did when this call started, everybody identify themselves so we have a list that Andy and myself can help moderate that and open up the mic so the council can talk, discuss, and vote without any interference or background affecting that discussion, Michelle. But that's certainly a concern that we have, and we absolutely share. We're looking at this as a stage one or a step one, and I feel that this has been successful, this step. So we're going to be aggressively looking at what do we do to consolidate that for the next meeting.
Thank you. And hi, this is Michelle again. I think that this is perfect for this meeting, especially given the situation we're in. I challenge us for future ones to start thinking about what that may look like, given that we're likely going to be in this situation for a little while. And I think it's, important that somehow they still have that access. I know the mayor's been on conference calls, I've been on conference calls, and there's ways to mute, there's ways to raise hands. So again, just having it on the burner of something to think about. Thank you.
Absolutely.
We absolutely are.
Thank you.
It's absolutely on the top of our list to do if we can.
Yeah, Mayor, this is Ron again. So Kelly and I are working with Brent to come up with a way for Planning Commission is another one until rules have been eased, and doesn't look like they're going to yet. We have to, if we're going to hold a public hearing, we have to be able to provide public testimony. And so we're trying to work through that. So that would fit right in with what Michelle's asking in terms of how do we get the public in, and maybe it is a Zoom meeting, because we've all been on those where people can be muted and unmuted. We just need to figure out the logistics of that and the details, and make sure that people have ample opportunity. That's my concern with the Planning Commission, is that they have ample opportunity to provide testimony when they want to, and we're working through those details.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, with that, we're really adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Guys.